we are very excited for what we're going to talk about tonight. Kaipod is an absolutely marquee premier micro school option for folks that want to, for parents who want to look at micro schools, but also they have a great Catalyst program that is a very much provides a huge leg up for teachers that want to start their own micro schools. And we have the founder of Kaipod himself, Amar Kumar, who's going to go through a presentation and talk about the Catalyst program that's coming up. So my wife Cindy is joining us. Cindy and I are half of ESA Connection, and but we are just blessed. And I want to get right to it, Amar, and just throw it over to you. And if you want to say a few words and take it from here.
I would love to. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for doing your work. You guys, Chris and Cindy, the way you're collecting and convening folks to create new educational options across Arizona. I love it. Love to see it. Thank you to our guests who are joining tonight. My name is Amar Kumar. I'm the founder of Kaipod Learning. We are a relatively new company, but we've been around for a few years. We're trying to really transform what education looks like. So it's a real great honor to talk to you about Kaipod and Catalyst. Plan today is to talk all things microschools, what they are, why they matter, how you can start your own. So I'll share about the program that helps educators, that helps parents start microschools in their communities. So that's something I can talk for days about. But before I jump into that, I'll start off with a belief that for too long, as an educator or other educators, we've thought more needs to be done to improve education in our community. Someone should do something. Someone should do something. And it always was someone should do something, because we always thought that the way to do that was through a big box building, a large school building. Someone else should create a big building, a new school, or change this district bureaucracy. And I think the last few years have taught us that that is actually the wrong way to think about the problem. And the right way is small, personal, flexible, local, agile. That's what microschools are all about. Locally owned, locally operated, started by people passionate about kids in their community, not caring about anything else that's going on nationally, but kids in our community. And those schools and those teachers and those entrepreneurs, they're responsive to that community. And they want parents to be able to exercise choice for those kids. And so this is what we are passionate about. This is what keeps us up at night. This is what wakes us up in the morning. We want to help educators find a career path that's high impact, that lets you build a deep relationship with the kids in your community and their families, one where you can balance life and career, and one that earns you a sustainable income. And for those who are daunted by this prospect of building a micro school, obviously you're not alone. There are hundreds of thousands of people right alongside you going through that process. And the whole purpose behind the Catalyst program is to put some structure in place to provide some support. So as you go on this journey, you feel like there's someone right behind you. Someone is the wind beneath your wings. So that's what we're going to talk about. So a little bit of the agenda for today. I'll talk with a few quick remarks about Kaipod Learning and the Catalyst program, so you have some context on who we are, what we do, and then we'll spend a lot of time talking about what it looks like to start your own micro school. Kaipod has launched 19 schools of our own, and we're supporting more than 50 founders across 25 states today. So we really have learned a thing or two about launching schools. Arizona is one of our deepest states in terms of the most founders and the most experience. So we know a lot about the state, the ESA program, the families, the politics that we can navigate with you. And then we'll leave some time at the end for questions today. Okay, so just a quick overview of our team. So I'm the founder and the CEO of Kaipod Learning. We have Annie Slater, who's our Chief Operating Officer, as well as head of our partnerships, including Catalyst. Christine, who's our Chief Marketing Officer. She knows everything about how to find families, no matter where they might be. And Ryan, who's our Chief Academic Officer, who knows everything about a wonderful student experience and high quality academic outcomes. And I show this not to show some pretty faces, but really to say, as part of Catalyst, every founder has access to all of us, not just this team, but the whole team underneath us. You get to schedule office hours with us. You get to set up deep dives with us. Everything from working on your financial model by sharing your screen, to your marketing plan and getting feedback on your website, or even like really specific advice, like how do I read a zoning map for my ideal location? So Annie is like an expert in that. So all of us are really expert in our area, and we provide tons of one-on-one support to every single founder in our cohorts. That's what differentiates Catalyst. It's not just about vision and marketing and theory. It's really specific and help you figure out exactly every single one of the decisions that you need to make to start your school. A little bit about Kaipod. So Kaipod is the broader organization. It started off because I was a school teacher and I taught a high school math course. I had like 30 kids in my class, and everyone here who's been a teacher knows when you're teaching a 9th grade math class, you've got some kids doing math at a 4th grade level and some who are doing math at a college level. Every one of those kids needs something different today, but I'm only delivering one lesson plan. And that challenge is what caused me to burn out. It wasn't the late hours, it wasn't the pay, it was the fact that I just didn't feel like I was moving the needle for these kids. That standing in front of a class and talking at them wasn't the right way. And so after a lot of soul searching, it led me to lots of different parts of education, eventually led me to online learning. And I loved online learning because kids could control their pace. They could decide when to learn what, and I wasn't the bottleneck. But then, of course, the challenge with fully online learning is there's lack of socialization. There's lack of peer support, social emotional support. Parents can often get too stressed out. So Kaipod started as a way to supplement online learning with in-person learning. So what if we could take the best of self-paced curriculum and pair it with a support system where kids could come to get academic support, get emotional support, make friendships. And so this is how we started. We already support several hundred kids across the country. And that kind of growth has shown us that the time is right. The time is right for more and more of these schools to start. And there's something magical that happens when you allow a kid to learn at their own pace, whether they're gifted or remedial, but allow them to also then just be kids with other kids their age in a very small group. There's something really magical that happens. So we want to build this new school model, and we're expanding our mission to not just do it ourselves, but to support other people who care about this, who care about microschooling, whatever it looks like in your community. So that's Kaipod. Catalyst. So Catalyst is the program that is designed to help you start your own school. It's very crucially a program to help you bring your vision to life. So Catalyst is not a franchise. You don't have to do it the way I do it. You don't have to copy my method. If you want to copy it, I'll give it to you. But it's your vision. What is your vision as an educator or as a community leader, as a parent? Let's help you bring that to life. That's what Catalyst is. You have access to every single thing I've ever built in this company, all of our resources, every template we built, everything we hired a lawyer and paid them $5,000 for, you can have it because we want you to not spend money on that stupid stuff. And we want you to do it much faster. And so Kaipod Catalyst is highly specific content, highly specific advice, lots of one-on-one time, lots of community, because you're not just doing this alone, you're doing it with others. And so the things that I would note here, one, it's an accelerator. An accelerator, just like in your car, it helps you go fast. So we don't want people who want 3 years to design their microschool. We want people who want it live by August. So if you're excited about doing this in August and getting this thing from an idea to reality, Catalyst is for you. The second thing I want to point out is in Catalyst, you are in the driver's seat. We don't want people to say, who just say, I need a job, tell me what job I should do. No, this is people who say, I want to be in the driver's seat. It's my vision. It's going to come to life. I just need someone in the passenger seat. I just need someone reading the map with me. That's what Catalyst is. And then the third is all the supports you're going to get, and we'll share more about that. So hundreds and hundreds of decisions you have to make. There's no easy playbook on how to make them. Could you do a microschool without Kaipod? Of course you can. Lots of people do. But what we want to make sure is you don't give up. We want to make sure that when the going gets tough, you have a community of founders and leaders to rely on, and that you don't spend money on things you don't need to be spending money on, that you don't make the mistakes that other people have made, that you actually have a really high chance of success. That's what Catalyst is all about. Okay, so what does it look like? So we sort of describe it as 4 phases. The first is obvious, it's the application. So everyone who gets into Catalyst starts with an online application. It's relatively straightforward. We're just trying to get to know you. Who are you? Why do you want to do this? We're trying to get to know your school vision. Give us some broad outlines of what this looks like. We don't expect you to have figured this all out. In fact, if you have figured it out, you probably don't want us. So the goal here is people who are just starting to ideate, just starting to say, this is kind of what I want it to look like. And we're trying to make sure that this is something that you want to run on a sustainable basis. So that's the application process. We'll invite you into a Zoom interview with our team, and then we'll assess, okay, are you ready to lead a school this fall? And then the accelerator program starts this spring. It'll be an 18-week program, and it's cohort based. So you're going through it with a cohort of other founders, and it's part-time, which means you can be finishing out your classroom year, you can be doing another job alongside Catalyst. We know that teachers usually are earning income for their families and they can't just quit to start a school. So we have intentionally designed this so you can run you can do your daily job while doing all the building blocks to start your school. And then the third part is launch preparation, which is, when the summer gets in, you're talking to families, you're activating the local leads to recruit people, running open houses and information sessions. We're there to help you with that. And then the final piece, which is really important, but sometimes gets forgotten, is post-launch support. Unlike other people who are helping folks start microschools, the day you open your doors, they say goodbye to you. And what happens in microschools? A lot of them fail. And they fail because the first 3 years are really hard. You're probably not up to scale right away. You're probably dealing with small challenges here and there. You have all these questions, but there's no one left to help you. So we've intentionally designed Catalyst to support you for 3 years after you launch. And that support is now not about how do you launch, it's about how do you scale up, deliver great outcomes, make your parents into the best evangelists you could ever ask for your school. That's what we think about. So continue, all the one-on-one coaching continues, all the community support continues, all of the support on marketing, enrollment, everything continues. We're building our own software, so you get access to it for completely free as part of Catalyst, so you can run enrollment, billing, communication with parents, attendance, pictures, everything is part of our software. So you get access to that entire suite. And then we're building professional development that you get access to, student clubs you get access to, just all the stuff we want to build. Because for those first 3 years, all you should be focused on is being in that building and being around these kids. We don't want you to worry about any other stuff. So Catalyst is there to provide a little wraparound support. So that's the 4 parts of the program. Right now, obviously, we're somewhere between steps 1 and 2, depending on where you are in the process. But I want you to remember this is a long-term commitment that we make to you. These are some of the people we've already supported. I love this picture. I have it printed out in my home. We have already supported more than 50 founders across 25 states. So this is a national movement. It's men, women, it's parents, it's grandparents, it's community leaders, it's teachers, it's people of all kinds of backgrounds, income levels. This is truly a diverse movement. And it can be teachers, it can be community leaders, it can be parents. We've supported them all. And every single one of those groups can be a really great microschool leader. We sort of talked a little bit about diversity, and I love pointing this out. Diversity is not just about the color of people's skin. In this case, diversity is also about the learning models that people are building. So these are just 5 random founders in our very first cohort. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about their schools, because I think it'll help sort of outline how diverse microschooling can be. So Alexandra, who opened a school in Orlando, her school is targeted at neurodivergent learners. So the students who might be on the spectrum, they may have been kicked out of other schools, they're kind of on their last straw, and they're facing so many challenges. And her school is all about helping them develop as independent learners. Angie and Andrew, who are parents, they were homeschooling parents in Minnesota, and they started a learning pod that functions like a microschool, and they've attracted all the homeschool families in their community to start learning podding together. So very different. And they started with a very small group the first year. They filled up within 6 months, and this next year they're going to expand to double their size, because they've just seen so much demand. Jack in Arizona, he's in Phoenix, he's in the Scottsdale area. He's running a faith-based microschool that's targeted at boys. He believes that adolescent boys need some targeted supports, and his microschool is building those supports. So it's really about lots of outdoor time, community building, talking about each other's sort of needs, addressing the needs of boys in a way that large schools often neglect. And often boys end up in the principal's office, whereas this school is really targeting, what do they need, and allowing them to learn at their pace. Jordan in Texas, he's opening a high school. He has opened a high school, and he calls it a high school for highbrow humans. So it's really about encouraging students to ask questions, challenge the status quo, become inquisitive learners. So it's very different than some of the others, but really around understanding the future and what it can look like and how students can shape that. And then finally, Latoya, she's in Atlanta, and she's running a play-based learning environment for younger kids. So really incorporating nature into our learning model every single day. So you can see all 5 of these founders in our first cohort, there's no one right way to do a microschool. They each provide something different for their communities. And through Catalyst, we help them shape that vision and bring it to life. Okay, so I want to also talk about the 8 big building blocks. This sort of helps give you an outline of how our program is structured. I'm just going to click through all of them. So these are the 8 big things that are around launching a microschool. Certainly every microschool work starts around thinking about your vision, the student experience, which essentially, how do you build a joyful learning environment where kids trust you and they trust each other? The curriculum, of course, is what are the different types? What are the different pros and cons of different archetypes of curriculum? We've vetted almost 200 of them, so we can give you lots of advice on which one might work for your type of learners. We also have curriculum partnerships that can get you discounts if you choose them. We talk about compliance. This is a big sticking point for lots of founders. So we talk about regulations in state, city, county, and navigating a web of things without spending money you don't need to be spending. Financial model, which is the thing that probably causes a lot of stress for founders, is how do I build something that allows me to pay myself but not charge an exorbitant amount for families? You're lucky in Arizona, you've got this wonderful ESA program, but still you want to think about a sustainable financial model. And so that's one of the key modules in Catalyst. Location strategy, right? Do you want to locate this in your home, a commercial space, a church, an office building? There's lots of pros and cons. We've got lease agreements, templates, LOIs, everything we can share so you can use to find your ideal space for your school. We also have relationships with brokers, especially in the Phoenix area, that can actually help you find a great spot. Marketing, enrollment, this is something that founders are often scared of, right? Especially if you're a school teacher, you were sort of used to just having kids come to your classroom. You didn't have to market for them. They sort of showed up. But now that you're going out on your own, you got to put up a website, set your vision up there, lots of information, create flyers, create some local awareness. So we have a playbook to help you do that. And lots of recommendations on things to increase this likelihood of success. And then, of course, operations, a catch-all bucket that catches everything from, what if I'm sick? Does my microschool shut down? How do I get a substitute? To how do I do billing? So all these questions we've thought about hundreds of times over. So now you can basically take advantage of everything we built. So each of these modules, we've got some asynchronous work. So like things you can consume at your own pace, as well as some synchronous support. So you get hands-on support. So the idea here is you can move at your own pace as fast as you want, but then someone is there to help you when you get stuck. So those are the big modules. I think probably the last thing I'll say is these 8, they're not rocket science. Anyone you talk to about starting a microschool, even if you go to ChatGPT, it's like, what should I know about starting a micro? It's probably gonna tell you these 8 things. But I think the devil is in the details. The devil is, how do these things affect each other? For example, everyone knows you need a curriculum, number 3. But how you think about your approach to curriculum determines the way you actually get licensed, believe it or not. Number 4, it can affect your financial model. Number 5, it changes the way you do marketing strategy. Number 7, your curriculum can actually also change what type of location is ideal for you. So we've thought about a lot of these dependencies that may not feel obvious. And so the whole premise behind Catalyst is you may not have thought about these things, but we have. So when you're about to step into something that we think is probably not a good idea, we'll tell you, and we'll give you some advice there. So this is the whole point about Catalyst. And then being in the cohort, it's all about community. So you're not doing these 8 alone, you're doing it with lots of other people. Okay, last couple of slides, because I've been talking for a long time. Content, we talked about content, playbooks, operations manuals, staff handbook, family handbook, everything is available. You don't even know yet what you don't know. We want to help you see around the corner, so all of that is there. Some of our founders from our first cohort said that our templates saved them about $10,000 in fees, which I just could not believe. But then when I went back and see how much it cost us to make some of these, it makes sense. So you have access to everything on an ongoing basis. So you'll save some time and money. Coaching, we've talked about, You have direct access to the entire team. We are running the largest network of our company, Microschools, in the country. We are the largest now, and we have learned the hard way of how to do this. So you have access to all of us to do this well. We can help you with fundraising, with grant applications, with getting a business loan. We've done all of this several times, and we can help you figure out how to do it for yourself. And then, of course, community. Building a microschool can be lonely work. It can be hard. Now, in Arizona, you're lucky. You have a lot of people doing this. You could find community. You can find other people doing it with you. But believe it or not, the pressure to give up can be great. Just tonight, I was communicating with one of our founders in Texas. And she sent me a message on our chat platform. Hey, Amar, you told me to tell you when I'm ready to give up. It's that moment. I called her right away. We had a chat. We figured out there's one particular thing that was really getting her stuck. Helped her get unstuck. And she's like, okay, I'm going to take the rest of the night off. I'm going to start again tomorrow. Without that kind of support, she may have given up. And the world would have never seen her school. So this is why this is super important to do it with a community. Even if you don't do it with us, please find a community to do it with, because it's really important that you don't give up on your vision. Okay, so last slide from me is how it works. There are 3 parts of the accelerator we've talked about. I'm very clear that there's no upfront fee to join the accelerator. We talk about this very intentionally because you should know what you're getting into. There are a lot of people who charge fees to hire them. There are a lot of people who charge you $15,000 to even enter their program. And I've heard so many stories of teachers taking out personal loans to have the privilege to work with someone. I hate that. No upfront fees. And then the second part is affiliation period, which is if you decide to start a microschool, then we have a partnership agreement, which is essentially we provide you that 3 years of support long-term in exchange for a per student fee. So we want to scale with you. So if your school's only 2 kids, you're obviously going to be struggling too. So we don't want to take a bunch of your money away. But if your school grows to be 20 kids, then we all succeed together. So the goal here is we align all of our incentives. We're both aligned that you should start a school, and we're both aligned that that school should get to a healthy number where everyone's happy. That's how our model works. So it's fully transparent. We see the agreement up front, so we don't hide anything. There's no other fees. And there's a ton of benefits during the affiliation period. We have some of those on our website. I'm also happy to go into them in the Q&A. But the whole goal here is help you get something up to scale, whatever scale means for you, and help you build something quality that you're proud of. All right, so next steps. The application deadline for our 3rd cohort is February 18th, which is in 12 days. It does not take a lot of time to fill out an application, but it is an important thing. So please take the time to do it well. So that's the next big deadline. The cohort starts early March. We've already had a few people who've been accepted into the cohort, so we're adding them into our community as they get accepted because we want them to get moving to launch by August. We also have a Facebook group called Microschool Movement. If you just Google it, it's for people who may not be exactly ready. I sort of say, you're microschool curious. You're not ready to launch this fall, but you want to keep learning. You want to keep trying things. You want to join webinars. Just join the Facebook group or our newsletter from there. That will give you at least, I think, the starting information to figure out if this is right for you. And then if you have any questions, you can go to our website and say, I have a question. You can just email that email address, which is catalyst@kaipodlearning.com, and me or one of my team will get back to you. So that's everything I had for the presentation. Thank you so much for paying attention. I'm happy to take questions now if there are any.
So, Amar, I just wanted to let you know, Chris Larson just joined us. He is from Yuma, and Chris, he's waving hello, and love the beard there, Chris. That's awesome. Yeah. So Chris and I talked about a week ago, coincidentally. I didn't know if he was the one from Yuma that was trying to chime in, but he got to know one of our legislators who I know, and Mike kind of sent him to me and said, hey, Chris wants to start something in Yuma, but he needs some help. And, Chris, I got to thinking, well, I should call you. So Chris just jumped on kind of cold turkey about 5 minutes ago. So anyway, welcome, Chris, and just want to introduce him.
Nice to meet you, Chris. All right. Yeah, how can I help? Any questions and anything I said?
Hey, I just had a real quick question. So I did send the application, but it was so long ago. Should I send another one?
I will check for you.
Okay.
Let me take that as an
It
action.
was like in November. That's why I'm like, ooh, I don't know if it was too long ago. So
That was probably for our last cohort, but I'll go check in our system for this new
okay.
cohort. And then if it's fresh enough, then we'll.
Okay, and if not, I don't mind resubmitting one because
Yeah.
I'm really, really interested. I think that'll be really helpful.
Dean is done
Amar,
with dinner.
I have a question. I have a couple of friends that are current school teachers, and obviously, I heard you explain that this cohort that's starting February 18th would get people up and running on their own time so that they're ready to go in August. When would the next one be? If they can't get into the February 18th, will there be another one, another opportunity?
Yeah, we'll probably run another one this fall. So it
Okay.
wouldn't be get started this fall, but it would be then for fall of 2025.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
So we're going to do at least 2 cohorts a year. And one of the big questions to be in this cohort is, are you ready to start this fall? So if your friends are not yet ready, I'd say to them, just go to the website and put their email address in to say, I'm interested, but like not yet. So that way we know. And then every time we launch a new round of applications, they'll get an alert.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a couple questions. Hi, I'm Denna.
Bye.
Hi, Dana.
Being so patient with me. We just finished up dinner, so oh my goodness, I only caught the last little bit of the presentation. Amar, thank you for being so understanding. I am going to go back and watch the recording, so I don't know if these questions were answered. But I was curious about the size of the cohorts. Do you already know, or do you cap it at a certain amount for the cohorts?
Yeah, we don't cap it, but we are very careful about the matching process. So our current cohort is 32 founders, and which we feel is a little big for like one group. So what we've done is we've broke you're 32, but then you're also in groups of 8. So you have 2 levels of community. And that's been really helpful, we've noticed, because when you want to just get accountability, sort of camaraderie, you have your group of 8. When you have a question you want an answer to, you have a bigger group. So we're doing both levels. For this next cohort, we don't think it'll be as big because obviously we're closer to the start of the school year, so fewer people would be excited about or ready for it. So we're not necessarily going to cap it, but if it gets to be a little too big, then we break it into those subgroups.
Okay. And I also wanted to ask about branding. For the handbooks and the materials that we would have access to, are we given the rights to put our own branding on these things?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms of using the Kaipod brand, you can't say Kaipod Learning, obviously, on your own website, but we have a little logo that says I'm a Kaipod Catalyst partner, or I'm part of the Kaipod Catalyst program. We've seen a lot of parts of the country that can add instant credibility, so we allow you to do that. And then any other material, you put your own logo on there.
Okay, excellent. Sorry, I don't mean to ask so many questions at once, but I also appreciate that you guys help with grant writing. That's definitely a big thing, especially coming at this. I started a nonprofit last summer, and so I'm trying to work the Microschool idea into my nonprofit. And so I was looking at VILA grants.
Yep.
Or grants. Okay, you obviously are familiar with those. That's great.
Very
Do you guys help with these smaller grants as well? I mean, how successful is that? How likely are we as a small brand new Microschool to get a grant?
Great questions. Wow. So in terms of our support, we have a whole list of grants for this space that you have access to, so you know what you might be eligible for. Every time we hear a new one, obviously we get notified when someone's about to launch a grant, given how big we are. So we'll let you know. For example, in Arizona, there was a relatively new one that was just launched. So we just told all of our Arizona founders about that grant. I forgot the name right off the top of my head.
San Juan Diego, probably.
Thank you. San Juan Diego. That's it. So when we get wind of one that's local to a state or a national one that started applications, our founders get access to that. We help you review your application. So we want you to take the first draft, but then I personally read them, give you lots of feedback on how to edit it to make it better. And then we also have a network of 3 full-time grant writers who you can actually hire. So obviously we can't pay them, but if you wanted to hire someone to actually just write the grant for you, we've negotiated good rates with them, so you can just go directly and say, hey, write this grant for me. So we recommend that for the larger grants, because sometimes those have long applications that you may not have time to fill in. I don't recommend that for the short ones, because it might take you a few hours. Why spend hundreds of dollars on someone? So it's a combination of those two that we can help with. In terms of Vela, please don't tell anyone else this, but in our first cohort, every single person who applied from our Catalyst cohort got the Vela.
That's what I was gonna. I knew I don't want to toot, I know you won't toot your own horn, but I'll toot it from it. From what I've heard, if you have KiaPod help you with a grant, it's not a done deal. It's not a sure thing. Nothing ever is, but you got a very, very good chance of getting her done, which is important.
Yeah, I mean, here's how I think about it. If you're Vela, you want to fund people who are highly likely to open schools. The Catalyst program increases your chance of opening a school by 6x.
Yeah. Nationally,
10%, and Catalyst is 60%. Not everyone ends up opening a school. We know this is really hard work, so I'm not going to fake it and say it's 100%. It's the real number is 60%. So we really want to improve that every single cohort. But Vela knows that the cohorts from Catalyst are going to be 6x more likely to open a school. They're going to be more likely to fund. So in the application, there's actually a little checkbox to say you're part of KiaPod. So for me, a really good sign. So again, no guarantees. I don't know what's going to happen this year with the Vela grant, but last year was 100%.
Thank you for answering my questions.
And I wanted to point out that I put in the chat box, I put a link where you can find out more information about the Catalyst program. If you have other questions that you think of later on, just jot that link down for you. There's also a link to the applications, and those are due by Sunday, February 18th, correct, Amar?
Yeah, that's right.
And just so you guys know, that San Juan Diego grant, it's 10,000 for new, 20,000 for existing, and the deadline is February 15th. And they are really kind of geared more towards Hispanic communities, but they're open. And then Amar, a question about, I think everybody on here is nonprofit, I'm not sure, but a question about, do you help or do you suggest a nonprofit status, for-profit status, or maybe give us some color on that?
This is one of the first things we cover in the Catalyst program. There's a special 15-minute video on the pros and cons of both. Essentially, there's 6 or 7 things you need to think about when you're making this decision. Your funding source, your larger vision, your relationship with a possible board, the local community needs, et cetera, right? There's lots of things you need to think about. The way I say it is, if you don't have a really good reason to be a for-profit, become a nonprofit. You will make your life so much easier. You're going to be able to collect grants. You're going to be able to get discounts on things, and parents will just treat you with a little bit less skepticism. However, there are some good reasons to be a for-profit. If you have a broader business that maybe does tutoring, if you have a grander vision to scale this into lots of locations, if you want to actually own this business rather than manage it as a nonprofit, there are reasons to make it a for-profit. But if you don't believe in any of those reasons, just make your life easier and be a nonprofit. Obviously, the 15-minute video goes into more detail, but that's the Click Notes version.
Now, Amar, do you give them help there? I know Stand Together has free legal advice, and they'll help microschools get set up. Do you guys point them someplace like that, or how does that work?
Yeah, for legal advice, we love the folks at Yes Legal or Yes Every Kid. They offer free legal advice. Essentially, what we do is I'll do an office hours with you to go through the high level of your state or your county and help you answer some basic questions, and then help you figure out, okay, what are the specific questions you should go ask Yes Every Kid, because you have limited time with them, so we want you to be smart when you go to them. And so we connect you directly with Mike Donnelly or his team, and they can then go deeper into the questions. Arizona, you're lucky. There's actually a lot of freedom in terms of how you operate, but you still want to be smart and not fall afoul of zoning laws or something else. So in all those things, we've got partnerships with insurance brokers, banks, credit card providers, bookkeepers, attorneys, real estate brokers. I don't know if I already mentioned this. Lots of different partnerships. So anything you need, hopefully we have some, especially in Arizona where we're so deep, we've got a lot of partnerships.
I'm getting a little bit like, oh no, because I already created an LLC for my tutoring company. So I'm wondering if that's going to be like a huge issue or if it's going to be like a seamless transition
No.
or anything like that. So,
We'd have to talk about what you want to do. There's a chance you may want to keep it an LLC. I think like 40 to 50% of our founders actually go with an LLC. So it's not as if it's like everyone is a nonprofit. And if you're going to build, especially in Arizona with an ESA, you could actually build a sustainable micro school without relying on grants. And the ESA doesn't require you to be a nonprofit. So in Arizona, you might not need to change. But if we go through it and we say, yeah, you probably should, you might be better off as a nonprofit, then I can help you get one off the ground. And then you can just have two. There's also the concept of a fiscal sponsor, which can allow you to get around some of that. But those are details we get into later.
yeah, we're probably jumping the gun a little bit, but I just want to make sure that I'm not
Well,
like
that's a good question, though. That's a good
already
question. Yeah.
already not good.
People who are doing businesses are often the most successful at starting a school because you've already run a business, you already have a community of clients that, they maybe not a lot, maybe you're starting it, but generally successful tutors, their families are the ones who say, I wish my kid could go to your school. And when that happens, then that's a really good recipe.
As I change to a nonprofit specifically, so I'd be able to get donations from people that could claim it on their taxes. It's not a complicated process, just a simple form. You do have to make sure that in the articles of incorporation for the federal government to accept it as a 501c. 3C, but otherwise it was really simple process if you do decide to switch it over. But I like what I said earlier. You could have both. You could have a LLC for one part of your activities and a nonprofit for the other. So you might consider that as well.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not worth the hassle, right, Chris? But it's not the end of the world. It's not actually that big of a deal. Some people are just afraid of anything legal, so I say, okay, don't bother with two. But if you're okay with a little bit of that work, then sometimes it's easier to have two.
So I have a question, Amar. Just in your experience, former public school teachers starting a micro school versus a business person starting a micro school, what's the difference? Does it matter? Do you pluses and minuses, like 6 one way, half a dozen another? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think like 80% of the people in our program are teachers. So there is definitely a bias towards teachers starting their own schools, but it doesn't have to be that way. And where the rubber meets the road is in what does the day-to-day student experience look like? If I'm a school teacher, I can imagine that I am largely leading the student experience every day, right? I might be sort of picking the curriculum, I might be sort of guiding students one-on-one, and I am more responsible for the academics. If I'm, say, a business person who wants to enter education, maybe I don't feel comfortable creating lesson plans or teaching. So maybe then I bring in an online curriculum to supplement all of that. And then my job is to create a really wonderful social environment and provide enrichment activities and create a great community, right? So you bring different strengths to the job of running a micro school. And so if you're a business person with no experience teaching in the past, I often say, please don't create your own curriculum, not in the first year. Like, please don't stand in front of a whiteboard and teach because that's what you think education should be. No, you can do it completely differently, right? So let's help you find a great online curriculum that you can bring into the pod or the micro school where kids can learn at their own pace, but then you are there as a supplement. Whereas if I was a school teacher, I say, okay, what's your vision? Like, what do you want to do? Were you really excited about lesson plans and grading homework? Or were you more excited about something else? And so based on what their interest was when they were teaching, we sort of help them shape the vision for their school. But, both have been successful. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I have a question kind of in the same vein. From your leaders that were former public school teachers, what did you find was one of the toughest transitions from them, from being in front of 35 to 40 kids to none, or not none, but you know what I mean? Like, that transition, what was the toughest for them?
That part is easy. The
Yeah,
hardest part for
sure.
them, the hardest part for them has been there's no one above me. There's no one to check with. I get to make this decision. Or sorry, it starts with I have to make this decision.
Yeah.
And then it becomes I get to make this decision, right? That unlearning of you're being told what to do by a system, and that system is designed for thousands, 10,000 kids. That system is not designed for you and your 25 kids. Unlearning that, it can be tough, but boy, when that clicks, the smiles, the joy, the
Yeah.
gratitude just starts pouring in.
It's almost like you're having to do a
Mhm.
lot of unlearning for your students, but you're also having to do it for yourself, which
Mhm.
is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, going from 35 kids to like 10 kids is going to be cake.
Uh,
It's like total autonomy, total
yeah.
freedom.
Yeah.
It's going to be wild.
Same with
But it's
parents. You're also helping them unlearn behaviors, right? Parents who are used to being in schools, they can't come into the building, they can't advocate for their child without raising their voice. All of a sudden, you're like, come on in, come take a look. Like, there's an extra desk if you want to work there while we're doing. Like, you're like, what? Like, I'm invited into my child's school. I don't have to shout to like be heard. Like, you are the owner and the teacher. Like, that's fantastic. So sometimes it takes a while for the parents' volume to go down too. We definitely see that at our Kaipod locations. Parents come in like fully on guard, super angry, and then like we're like, yeah, we can do that for Johnny. That's fine. Like you don't need to send us the IEP. We believe you. Like we'll do it. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. So this is really valuable work.
I have a quick question. I apologize if you went over this already. But as far as the time commitment for being in this cohort, starting in less than a couple weeks here, if we're accepted, of course, what does that look like on our end as far as like actual time commitment? And are there set times that we have to be online and all of that?
Yeah, we suggest 5 to 10 hours a week. That's the amount of time you need from basically the start till the start of the school year, start of the program to the start of the school year, 5 to 10 hours a week on average. And that's work not synchronously, like you're not on Zoom for 10 hours a week, God no. That work is the work you're doing to start your school. So filling out a financial model, creating a website, passing out flyers in your community, running an open house on a weekend, right? That's the time you're spending to build your school. In terms of the synchronous time where like you're on with your community, that's roughly every 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the week we're in. It's usually in the evenings because we know a lot of you are teaching or doing other jobs. And then we schedule that around lots of needs. So we try our best to match you to a time slot that works for you. And so those are the synchronous times, and then most of the work is asynchronous. And then in the summer, when sort of things are starting to heat up, you're setting up your space, you're buying furniture, you're recruiting more families, you're finalizing your schedule. Obviously, you're on the higher end of that 10 hours a week, probably a little more.
I just want to say from a business standpoint, having somebody like Amar's team that are in there that know what you should be paying for a lease, know what you kind of need, know what a fair banking deal looks like, know how to get you set up. I mean, I just want to reiterate, that's like huge. Like you don't have to make those mistakes and learn that from scratch. That's that acceleration part of it, I suppose.
Exactly right. Yeah, thanks for saying that.
So I have a question, Amar. We have a 75, 80% of the Hispanic and Black communities in Arizona. They really want in on the ESA program. And one of the things that's on our heart is to help them. Do you guys provide cohorts in Spanish? Like, because we have some parts of the community that, they very well may want to teach in Spanish, at least initially. And so how might something like that work?
Interesting. And you're saying the founder is not an English speaker?
Could be, or they just may understand things that are kind of complex for them. Like, because this could be like a parent that has a heart to teach, right? They're not really a teacher, and they just may, English might be their second language, and it just like things are going to flow better for them. They're going to learn better in Spanish. So like they're probably going to be bilingual, right? They're going to have to be, but just I'm asking the
Great
questions.
question.
We're going to record
We
this,
have,
and
I have never thought about this question. Yeah, so if someone is an English speaker, obviously it works. If they're not an English speaker or they're much more comfortable in a different language, like Spanish, like we have Spanish speakers on our team, so they could be their coach. Like we could easily figure out a way to support that. I would love to support that. We've just never had that issue before. So if you know someone who's in that situation, I'm committed to figuring it out.
we're going to be sending you some people, Amar, that are going to be in that position. So,
and in fact, what could be really fun is if we get like say 6 to 8 of them, then we could create a group that's just a Spanish speaking group. The group leader, or the course leader as we call them, they could be a Spanish speaker, and that whole group could be facilitated in Spanish. And all the materials now with AI, you can translate everything into a different language, so we could actually have access to a Spanish set of materials for them. Yeah, that would be actually really wonderful to figure out.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. We'll see if we can make something like that happen.
Great.
Elise, did you have another question? Looked like you were.
No, I was just saying that was cool. That was a good idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Love that idea. There's so much need for that. So
yeah, I would love to see so many more schools in Southern Arizona, Southern Phoenix, Southern Arizona, right? Like there's a lot of stuff up north, but you're not seeing it in Yuma, in other parts of the state. And microschooling is such a unique segment or solution, which like even in rural communities, a microschool can be sustainable with 10 kids. You don't need 300 kids. This is why private schools never go to rural communities, but a microschool, 10 kids is all you need. You could actually do that. Mixed age kids. So I love the potential of this work.
So Mara, as far as helping, like what percentage? So I mean, most of the time your micro schools, I would assume, are like 8 to 12 kids. Is that pretty standard?
8 to 12 per teacher or per educator. Some of our founders, like one of our founders has 50 kids in her first year. Obviously, she hired 4 other educators. She got so much demand right off the gate. Another one had 42 kids. Another one is now at 30 kids. So we don't recommend that one educator work with 30 kids. Like the biggest ratio I'm comfortable with is usually 15. 15, and that's for older kids who might be more neurotypical. You can get away with 15. But as soon as you introduce a neurodivergence or younger kids, I start to bring that ratio down, because the number one thing is those kids should have a magical experience every day, and you as the teacher should not burn out. So those two things require smaller ratios, and so we have to make the numbers work. So our financial model is designed so you can play around with those things.
Are most schools meeting 4 days a week, like Monday through Thursday, 6 hours a day, or like is there a like what are you seeing out there?
All over the map. All of our founders enter saying, I want to do a 5-day-a-week school. Every kid will be there every day. And then like when they start talking to families, they're like, what if we did 4 days? What if we did Tuesdays and Thursdays? Like families want flexibility. So all of our founders eventually end up realizing that the more flexibility you give, the more likely you're going to recruit families and the more successful kids will be. So most of our founders naturally end up at this place where the school's open 5 days a week. But there's like a part-time cohort. So some kids are only there 2 days, some kids are only there 3 days, and some kids do come 5 days. There's also other varieties that we've seen. Some have afternoon programs only, some have morning only. There's lots of different flexible options.
I do have a question about that, and I guess I'll probably get in the Catalyst program, but hear more about this. But I was talking to a couple of families who were like, well, I'm not really looking for, because my plan was to go 4 days a week, like a general school hours, maybe like a little bit later because I would have older kids. But it would be general school hours. But they were kind of like, well, I don't know, maybe we just want to do like a drop-in or like 2 days a week. Is that like common for
Very
micro schools?
common. Depends on who you're attracting. If you're working largely with homeschooling communities or online schooling communities, they want the drop-in because they've already structured some of their life around having their kids at home. And so they don't want to say, my kid's just gone 5 days a week. Like, what do I do? You know, like they like their kids, believe it or not. So some of those families who've opted into homeschooling, who you might be attracting, they want the drop-in part-time options. They sort of see this as like a structured co-op. But when you start recruiting families from public schools or traditional private schools, they usually want a 5-day program. They even sometimes appreciate extended hours if you can make that possible, because then they say, okay, this actually works around my work life and my home life.
Sure. Now, if you get those students, like the drop-in students, do those schools do like different things for different days? Like, do they have like a different way to like structure that? I guess I'm wondering, like, what does a drop-in look like for those schools who do that?
Depends on how you want to structure it. Lots of varieties are available to you there. We'll help you come up with, we have a lot of template schedules that you can play around with. The 5-day schedule, the 2 and 3 day schedule, the 1 and 4 day schedule, the AM, PM schedule. So depending on what you want to offer, you start with that schedule, and then you figure out sort of how you bucket academic time, enrichment time, free play time, based on what your families need. And then you start with something, but then like every week you're going to want to tweak it.
Yeah.
So that's the fun part of being the owner of a microschool. You get to decide.
That's awesome.
Amar, I know we only have a couple of minutes left.
Yeah.
Percentage that have a microschool in their home versus like a business location. Any thoughts on that? Any things for these folks to think about?
I would say, this is just off the top of my head, 50% of our founders end up in a church or a community center. 30% end up in a rented retail or office location. And then 20% end up in a home. And by end up, meaning they chose. Lots of pros and cons to that. It depends on your community. It depends on your price point. It depends on your own interests. It depends on regulation. Arizona is a little easier, but other states. So that's sort of the split we see. Churches and community centers are super popular because they're more affordable. They're very flexible. They don't require you to like sign a 5-year lease and a personal guarantee, right? You just sort of say like, I want to rent this room. The pastor says, that'd be great. Like, here, can you pay me $600 for the month? Great, done. So those are usually flexible and cheap for microschools to get started. What we often see is after the first year, the microschool founder feels confident. They have a long wait list. And then they say, okay, I think I'm ready to rent a retail location that's bigger, it's a little more professionalized, and now I have a little bit more business history to go rent something.
Okay, so we have about 2 minutes. It's getting kind of late out there on the East Coast for Amar. Maybe one more question, or we'll wrap it up. Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Again, we'll put this recording out there, and Amar, I just so appreciate you taking your time, and then our folks, Dina, Chris, and Elsa that tuned in. But Amar, any closing words?
No, like I said, like this is such important work. I always say your communities need to see your schools come to life. So just remember that. And even if you don't do it with us, find a community of people to do it with, because this is really hard work and you deserve the support. So if you choose us for it, we'd love to help you. Look forward to meeting you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And, go open up your schools. Be fearless. Go get her done. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Good
Amar. Amar,
night.
will you let me know if I need to reapply?
Yep, I looked up your email address. I will email you tonight or tomorrow.